To repair an Ultralife spa shell, these are the materials you will need. It may be necessary to dye the water in the spa blue to locate the crack. To dye the water, empty 1 container of blue dye into the spa water. The dye will settle in the cracked area of the spa. The blue water will leak through to the foam underneath the spa and make it easier to locate the crack from beneath. Then, empty the water from the spa. Next, you will need several people to help you stand the spa on its side. Do not lean the spa on the side with the equipment door. With a large screwdriver, remove the liner from the bottom of the spa. Look for the area on the foam that is either wet or blue if dye was used. After you have located either the wet spot or blue dye on the bottom of the spa, you will need to dig out the foam covering the cracked area using a large screwdriver or a crowbar. Be careful not to puncture the shell or the plumbing line. If a large area of foam is removed, save the foam because later you may use it to re-foam the repaired area. Clean an area approximately 3 inches beyond the width and length of the crack. Use the 80 grit sandpaper to remove the remaining foam sticking to the back of the spa. Use a 1/4 inch drill bit to drill a hole at each end of the crack. The holes will prevent the shell from cracking further. After the holes are drilled, clean the area thoroughly. Then move to the front side of the spa and place a piece of masking tape over the crack to prevent the welder epoxy from seeping through. Now, you're ready to apply the fiberglass mesh, which provides support and will keep the crack from reopening. Start by cutting 2 pieces of the fiberglass mesh large enough to cover approximately 2 inches or more beyond the width and length of the crack. Squeeze the first bit of welder epoxy into a rag to ensure that the epoxy is fully mixed. Then, slowly apply approximately 1/16 of an inch of epoxy to the back of the spa and the area to be covered with a fiberglass mesh. Immediately, lay the fiberglass mesh over the epoxy. Using the acid brush provided in the repair kit, work the epoxy into the fiberglass mesh. If you are repairing a larger crack or one in a high traffic area, more than 2 layers should be applied. Wait about 10 to 15 minutes and repeat the same process to apply more layers of fiberglass mesh. After the last layer is dried, apply another coat of the welder epoxy over the fiberglass and smooth out the entire area. After the final layer of welder epoxy is dried, you will need to recover the repaired area with foam. It is very important to wear a face mask during this procedure. Hold the handy foam canister and nozzle approximately 1 foot away from the spa. It is important only to fill the cavity about 30% full with foam because it will expand quickly. The foam will be fully cured within 2 hours. Replace the bottom liner on the spa and set it right side up on the ground. You are now ready to repair the top side of the crack. Begin by removing the tape and make a U-shaped cut in the cracked area. Use a cutting tool to round out a channel the length of the crack. The channel should only be about 1/16 to 3/16 of an inch deep. Be careful not to cut too deeply. Then, remove all loose particles and clean the area thoroughly. Apply a small amount of plastic welder epoxy into the U-shaped cut. Use the application stick to smooth out the welder epoxy and get rid of as many air bubbles as possible. Wait approximately 45 to 60 minutes for the epoxy to fully dry. The epoxy will dry faster in warmer weather. After it is dried, build a U-shaped cut the rest of the way with liquid Ultralife. This time, be sure to slightly overfill the cut. Wait about 10 minutes for it to dry, and then you will be ready to start sanding. Start sanding with a 120 grit sandpaper. Make sure you sand with a grain of the texture. Sand a larger area so a channel will not be created. Although, you do not want to sand too large of an area, as this will create more work for you later when you are recreating the original texture. About halfway through the sanding process, you will start sanding in a circular motion. Sand until the repaired area is even with the spa surface. You should check the sanded surface every 15 to 20 seconds while sanding. Now, use the 220 grit sandpaper until the surface feels smooth. When you are satisfied with the smoothness of the sanded area, clean the area thoroughly with an alcohol water solution to remove all loose particles. Now, it's time to apply a layer of liquid Ultralife, which will add texture to the sanded area. The liquid Ultralife will be applied using the foam rollers provided in the repair kit. First, it is important to remove any debris on the foam rollers. Any particles left on the rollers will become part of the shell when the liquid Ultralife dries. Next, pour a small amount of the liquid Ultralife on the supplied mixing lid. For better control, roll only the outer half of the roller through the liquid Ultralife. Use a light, half dabbing and half rolling motion to achieve the proper texture. It is important to roll with the grain of the texture on the spa. Apply it to an area a little larger than the sanded area. Let the liquid Ultralife dry for about 10 minutes before beginning the next step. Once the liquid Ultralife is dried, you will notice that the texture you applied is a bit rougher than the texture of the rest of the shell. You will now use the 220 grit sandpaper to gently sand the area. This final sanding process is used just to round off any significant protrusions in the texture. It is important not to apply too much pressure during sanding. Thoroughly clean the surface again when you're finished. Using only the outer half of the roller, apply a thin layer to the area this time using only a rolling motion. Do not dab on the final coat. After about 10 minutes, the liquid Ultralife should be completely dry, and then you'll be ready for the final step. The area you've repaired may look slightly duller than the rest of the spa shell. To restore the shine, use a clean foam roller to apply a light layer of MEK. MEK dries extremely fast. You will have to work quickly to apply the chemical evenly over an area larger than the repaired area. The texture should now be back to its original look. You have now successfully repaired your Ultralife shell.